Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 5 of the Future of Work show. The topic we're going to talk about today is one that I'm super excited about: organizational change. Those of you who know me might know that I've worked in this field for over 20 years, so it's a field really close to my heart. At any given time, you'll see that organizations pretty much across the world are trying to transform themselves in one way or the other, but many try and very few succeed. So, in today's episode, co hosted by my co founder, Jaspreet, we have a very special guest for you. Jaspreet, you must do the honors.
Thank you very much, Shalini. As you said, this is a time of, it's always been changing, but this particularly is a time of great change. So today, I'm particularly pleased to welcome Rajeev Dubey, who currently is the principal advisor to the Mahindra Group. But until very recently, and until he retired, he was the group president HR for the Mahindra Group globally, as well as the CEO of a couple of companies in the group. He has a very distinguished career. After St. Stephen's, where he ranked first in the university, he was at the Delhi School of Economics, and then he went on to do his MBA from Yale School of Management in the US. He then spent almost 30 years with the Tata Group, where he entered as a part of the Tata Administrative Services. And in fact, I came in also into the Tata Group as a part of TAS, or Tata Administrative Services. And he was always this extremely distinguished senior CEO that we had. Other than this, he has many achievements to his credit. One of those being that he's actually India's representative to the ILO, the International Labour Organization, where he actually chairs the Future of Work Policy Group. So it will be a very interesting discussion. He'll give us a global context. He's very involved in theatre. I know for a fact that he practices yoga and Reiki regularly. And it will be very interesting for people to know that his other interests actually include past life experiences and fire walking. So, Shalini, I think we're going to have a cracker of a discussion today with Rajeev. And I wish we could have replicated the fire walking thing in some way, but hopefully in one of the future episodes, Rajeev. Over to you, Shalini.
Wow. Rajiv, I am so delighted to have you here with us today. There are so many questions I have. As you know, that Jaspreet and I in Uncube, we work to help organizations become future ready. And one of the most important skills for being future ready today is being skilled at change, skilled at organizational change. And organizations today have a much higher standard to meet as far as their pace and agility is concerned than at any time earlier in the past. So I have a lot of questions for you around what have been your experiences around particularly Indian organizations when they try and transform themselves. So you've been part of some of the most successful transformation initiatives we've seen in India. And I really want to ask you, particularly when it comes to large traditional Indian manufacturing organizations, what do you think are some of the strengths and what do you think are some of the challenges which organizations face when they try and transform themselves?
Okay, thank you very much, and I'm delighted to be on your show. I will talk largely out of my experiences in the last 12, 15 years in the Mahindra Group, because that's most recent in my mind. Though even when I was in the Tatas, there were two companies that I had run, and we had done a lot of transformational work there. The principles remain basically the same. But what I'm going to talk about is largely what we call Rise. Rise essentially is an attempt, it is first of all who we are. It is our purpose, it is the reason for our existence. And it derives directly from the one sentence core purpose of the group, which essentially is to drive positive change in the lives of our stakeholders and to do that through outperforming businesses. So really we are talking about a business transformation that will drive positive change, and this business transformation rests on a cultural transformation. And of course you have strategy, structure, processes, metrics, but you have this cultural transformation. And what is culture? Culture is nothing but the way we behave in our everyday lives. It is who we are. So first of all, I think there has to be a huge internalization and, if you like, a co-creation of why are we doing this? What does it mean for me? What are we going to do? And how are we going to do it? And then, of course, the who, the when, the where. So it is essentially a movement of people, but it has to have a lot of clarity on the why, and then a co-creation of the what and the how. Now, the important thing is that in the beginning, there's a huge momentum and everyone is excited. And there are a few sort of early wins. And then the energy starts going down. And that is where the leadership comes in. And they have to pick it up again. They have to again bring it back to life. They have to keep relating it to what people are getting. What is the meaning of this in their everyday lives? How is this helping them to achieve the primary task of the organization? I think that is the most important thing, that there is a primary task and we are creating this energy to do that in the most effective and efficient way, but at the same time to create the passion, the meaning, and the empowerment. So I think a huge part of what we are doing in the Mahindra is to link the hard business factors of sustained outperformance, strategy, structure, and processes with the unleashing of the potential of people and of situations, giving them meaning, creating passion, and doing that through the HR levers. You have to do it through the HR, and it's not a 100-meter dash. It's a long race. It's not even a marathon. It's far beyond that. It's our life. It's who we are. And it must be there in every waking and sleeping moment of ours. That's what change is all about. Now, why is it that change fails? Well, there could be many, many reasons, but essentially, I think if the intention and the purpose is not very clear, if the leadership is not walking the talk in every breath they take and every step that they take. I don't know, there's that famous police song, I'm forgetting the words, but it has to be lived. And the role models have to be people who are living the transformation. And then, of course, doing all the things that I told you. And clearly, all the HR levers have to be aligned, behaviors have to be defined. And then I think a very crucial part, in addition to the recruitment, the onboarding, the training, is the talent management. Who do you reward and recognize? Who are the role models? Because people look up to the role models. So it's the mix of all these things that I think create a successful transformation, and the absence or the not enough of these things will make it difficult to transform. I guess that's about all that I could say. Maybe you can ask me a few more searching questions and helpful questions.
No, absolutely, Rajeev. That was great. In fact, we could feel the energy and the passion which you had even after 12 years, 15 years of talking about Rise. You still have the same passion for that. And I guess it's not coincidental that you're wearing the Rise colors also. And it is coincidental that all of us are.
The Red Brigade.
Absolutely, the Red Brigade. I've had the privilege of working with you in the Mahindra Group, Rajeev, being a colleague of yours. And in the Tata Group too, while we never really worked together, you spent a long time there, I spent some time there. And one of the things which has always, struck me is that across decades now, there are so many, large Indian organizations, large Indian conglomerates. But if you kind of look back across decades and even centuries in certain cases, these two, the ones that both of us coincidentally worked for, the Tata Group and then the Mahindra Group, have managed to, in many ways, stay at their leadership positions, change along with the times, many times faster than the others, adapt and be leaders in their businesses that they are in. Most have not. many have fallen by the wayside in that sense. And we know, I mean, I have seen, and I'm sure so you have, as you've led these changes, as to how difficult it is sometimes to make change happen in these, larger, successful traditional companies. So my question is that what do you think separates out these successful organizations like Mahindra now, Tata, even Tata earlier and now, from some of the others in the pack, and therefore could make something like Rise happen in Mahindra?
Yeah, well, actually, I referred to all of them in my earlier lecture, but let me try and extract some principles out of it. I think the most important thing is the purpose, why the organization exists, and are the leaders and the rest of the organization completely aligned with that purpose, and is that purpose fueling the unleashing of potential towards the primary task. And the primary task could be different. I mean, it's one thing to say that we want to drive positive change. You can drive positive change in a million ways. So you have to connect the overall energy and the purpose to the specifics. And to do that, you need very strong processes, systems, and metrics. So it is, if you like, the combination of the left side of the brain and the right side of the brain led by purpose and fueled by the everyday behavior of people, the humility of the leadership to not think that we have all the answers, not being prisoners of their own past, being aware that the only thing that is permanent is change, listening to that change, listening to customers, listening to employees, listening to members of the supply chain, listening to communities, listening to the, if you like, the perennial gale of creative destruction, technological changes. So it's the combination of awareness, humility, listening, not being a prisoner of the past, and being committed that we are here to solve some problems. We are here to, if you like, bring to people, our stakeholders, the fulfillment of needs. They could be unmet needs right now, they could be underserved customers, they could be in under-penetrated markets, or they could even be needs that are being met. Can we meet them better? Can we meet them in a way that improves the value proposition? So it's a mix of these things. And of course, being able to take risk, because to transform, you have to take risk. And when you take risk, there will be failure. How do you deal with failure? Are you able to leverage failure to create the stepping stones to success? I think that is very important. And through all this is this word called trust. Are we creating trust so that our employees, our other stakeholders can keep on communicating with us and telling us what is going right, what is going wrong, and we are able to course correct all the time. So I think it's a mix of these things, the so-called hard and the soft factors, and it's an alchemy. I don't think there is a cookie cutter answer, and of course there's no guarantee of success, as you well know. We may fail, and that failure may be the best thing that could happen to us. We have to take it in our stride and move on. So I think I'm sorry I'm giving you a very poetic and philosophical answer, but this has been my hardcore experience, and I'm trying to distill it into words.
We can see, Rajeev, just how passionate you are still about the RISE program. So here's a question. How do leaders at the top sustain passion for change? Because as you yourself said, it's not even a marathon. It's not even an ultra marathon. It's years and years of energy behind, a movement, so to say. And one of the challenges which organizations face is that they run out of steam after a while. Start out on a high with all the best of intentions, very often do all the right things in terms of branding the program, communication, rolling out a number of initiatives. But somewhere a few years down the line, run out of steam to carry it through, almost like the slog overs, where you just have to be at it. So how does one navigate some of that? And Any suggestions or observations?
Yeah, yes. I think the starting point is the inner space of the leadership, especially of the top guy. Because out of that inner space comes the purpose and the intention. And out of that inner space comes the energy which answers the why, what, how, when. And if that commitment or that irada or that intention of bringing purpose to life is there in the inner space, that is really what will fuel it. I'm sorry if I'm giving a counterintuitive answer, but of course you have to back it up with process, strategy, metrics. I mean, and strategy. So I'm not at all saying that those are not necessary. They are necessary, but they're not sufficient. You have to have the combination of the hard wiring, if you like, with the energy and the spirit and the inner space. The philosophy. I'm daring to say that ultimately all business decisions are philosophy. It's a philosophical answer. What do we want to do? Why do we want to do it? There could be a million answers, and yet people choose that we will go into this. And this is how we will treat our employees. We will, you could choose to say we think the command and control way is the best way, or you could say that, we believe that creating the conditions where potential is unleashed is the right way. Now, that's a philosophical choice. It's a philosophical choice of the leadership, and that comes from the inner space. So I think the awareness of the inner space, the connection with that inner space is ultimately what gives it. Now, how do you cultivate that inner space? How do you connect with that inner space? That's a separate question altogether. And maybe some other time over a Nimbu Pani in a dhaba or something outside Gurgaon.
More than
So very well said. Yeah, go ahead.
No, absolutely. In fact, one of the things which totally resonated with me, Rajiv, is when you said that, you were asking for forgiveness when you said that, but you said that at the end of it, business is all philosophy and it's all philosophical decisions. Actually, it's not only business. I mean, mathematics at the highest level is philosophy, and I'm realizing as I work in technology that technology at the highest level is philosophy. And so it kind of boils down to that and, boils down to the philosophy, which comes, as you said, from the inner space.
Yeah. Jaspreet, if I may just chip in, there's a guy called Anand Mahindra. You and I know him.
I've heard of him somewhere. I've heard of him.
Somewhere. He often tells people that, tomorrow's leader, above all, has to be a very good philosopher. He needs to be many other things, but he needs to be a solid philosopher to be able to really survive and create something new and valuable in what we call the new normal. A sound philosophical approach and a sound philosophy are core requirements of the leader. And of course, he'll talk about other things.
So that explains a lot, Rajiv, about him and about the Mahindra Group itself, and a lot about the Rise program itself. Now, we cannot be, and in these times, talking on video rather than maybe talking face to face. We cannot be in these times and not talk about the big pandemic, the big disruption which is all around us. And the interesting thing that I have noticed, and I do want to ask you, is that look, how do these philosophies and how do these programs like Rise, for example, or other programs that other large organizations do to prepare themselves? How do you think, and if they do, prepare these organizations for these kind of massive disruptions which we are seeing right now? Is it that an organization like Mahindra, for example, with its different philosophy, would be better positioned to address and to survive and thrive through this than possibly organizations which do not have these kind of corporate philosophies in mind? The whole program of change that you and Anand and everyone, the leaders started in the Mahindra Group a dozen years back. Is it something which will help the group in this kind of a situation? What are your thoughts on that, Rajeev?
Yeah. No, in fact, I think, let me sort of try and interpret your question and then answer it. So if I were to say that the current situation is one of fear and uncertainty, what kind of leadership behavior, what kind of organization structures and processes are best designed to deal with fear and uncertainty? If that were to be the positioning or the restatement of your question, then I would like to suggest that the leadership behavior that is required. See, ultimately, the immediate problems of any organization would be survival, which means, do they have the cash? How do they handle the people? Because ultimately, there are people there. How do they handle people issues? How do they have processes for decision making? And how do they deal, if you like, with the supply chain or with the ecosystem? Now, in this kind of a fear and uncertainty situation, the leadership has to behave in a way that must satisfy three things. Number one, whatever they do has to be rooted in reality. That means they must be aware and they must be in touch with a lot of the stakeholders to know what is the reality and that changing reality. Second is that a lot of hard decisions and sometimes not very comfortable decisions have to be taken, and yet the leader must be able to give hope to the stakeholders and must deal with them with empathy, right? Then, because there are so many changes taking place, you cannot have one person being totally in command and control and taking all the decisions. So you have to have what could be called distributed leadership. You have to, since there is uncertainty, you have to keep on changing. You are not sure what is the right answer, so you try something. And if you try something, you may fail. Then how do you deal with failure? So if you take this kind of a scenario, then let's take the basic behaviors of RISE and the three RISE pillars and see, are they well suited to handle a situation of the kind that I've just described? So there are the three RISE pillars, which say, and the leadership in such a situation has to be connected to purpose and to value so that people understand where are the answers coming from. Okay, so that's a general thing. Now let's come to the RISE situation. In RISE, clearly there is a purpose, yes, which is that we will drive positive change, right? And we will drive positive change in the lives of our stakeholders. And we will do that by challenging conventional thinking and by innovatively using our resources. So that purpose is clear. Then we have what we call the RISE pillars, which are how do you create a RISE organization? Accept no limits, do alternative thinking, make sure you drive positive change. All three very relevant to answering the questions that I've raised before. Then we have the 5 behaviors. Let's look at them, the 5 RISE behaviors. Number 1, ability to use the whole mind, where you can combine the left brain with the right brain. Logic, intellect, rationality combined with empathy, intuition, connection, figuring out what the dots mean, right? So that clearly is a key to the kingdom to come in fear and uncertainty. Let's look at the second behavior, being a multiplier of energy, passion, engagement, by not being the control and command type, by listening, by respecting the views of others, by not pretending to know all the answers, but by focusing on the right questions and by co-creating the answers. Very relevant for this situation. Let's look at the third behavior, knowing how to manage fear and leveraging failure. So in uncertainty, you have to take risk. You have to try out many things. Surely there'll be failure. Now, you need to help people overcome their fear of failure so that they can try out things. And then you have to know, how do we deal with failure? Do we cut off the hands and legs of people who fail? Or do we give them another chance? Do we extract the learnings from failure to create success? It's your old rapid prototyping, early and cheap failure, quick feedback loop, and let's get on with the game. Relevant. Fourth one is mindfulness. Mindfulness meaning, are we open to all the possibilities that exist? Which means we are not prisoners of our own past. We have the ability to live in the here and now and be aware these are the problems, these are the solutions, and you can try them out. Very relevant for this kind of a situation. And finally, last but not least, trust through authenticity. If you don't have trust and transparency in the situation of fear and uncertainty, nothing is going to work. And creating this trust through authenticity. And what is authenticity? I will say what I think and I will do what I say. So it is the alignment of thinking, saying, and doing, which is creating, or which is authenticity in our definition. It is, if you like, about walking the talk or removing the mask, having the courage to be who I am, equally with my strengths and with my weaknesses. So I have posed some questions and I have given some rise sort of characteristics, and do the two match and are they relevant for the current situation of fear and uncertainty? That's for you and the viewers to decide.
Rajeev, I just cannot help but ask you a few questions which might be a little bit maybe not so easy to answer. They're to do with how easy is it to implement many of what you've said in a traditional Indian manufacturing organization. And the reason I ask this is that many traditional Indian large manufacturing organizations have a culture which is quite different from the kind of culture that you have described. Authority plays a big role. Sometimes obedience, loyalty, are rated higher than perhaps many other things. Not asking uncomfortable questions, or not, not sort of making your boss or someone in authority uncomfortable. All of those values are sometimes in many organizations very powerful ones. And a lot of the ethos you described, the distributed leadership, the challenging convention, trying things, fail, a lot of it is quite different. So you started off in Mahindra, I think in 2004, right? So you would have seen them through the course of this transformation. What were some of the challenges because of the difference in maybe values of what Rise wanted to do and maybe where the organization was when you joined?
So first of all, it's not easy, not at all easy, and it's not a 100-meter dash. You have to really have a long-term commitment, and you have to be prepared for failure, and yet you have to have the commitment right from the top. And I think, I earlier used to often say, oh, it doesn't matter who is the CEO, it's the systems and the structures and the processes and the metrics that drive everything. And now I say, with the same strategy, structure, processes, metrics, and systems, it is the energy and the purpose and the behavior of the leader and the commitment of the leader that actually makes all the difference, right? So that's one statement. It is not easy for the simple reason that the level of commitment to the purpose varies from leader to leader in the organization. And I think the most important thing is to make sure that the top team and then all the layers below that, one after the other, have actually a commitment to it, and they are able to internalize it. That's one thing. Then you have to have in place a review mechanism. What's going right, what's going wrong, how can we improve? So it's a combination of the commitment, and then what do you do with people who are not committed? What do you do with people who are flagrantly violating the basic tenets, what we call the 3+5? How do you deal with them? What are the role models that people can look up to in the organization? And over time, you build it up. And if there has to be some credibility, and of course, you have to have wins. I mean, that goes without saying that, you can have all this, and if you're continually making losses and losing market share and not getting return on capital employed and your share price is falling, all this is not going to help. So I think it's just the commitment, and so the inner space backed by the hard wiring and staying the race, right? But being willing to review. I think even this, now you may say, it's a contradiction in terms. You're talking about religion. You're talking about creating an institution. And isn't that sowing the seeds of failure and corruption? So I think clearly there is always a balancing act. And that's the other thing I have learned in my life, that the answer is never clear cut. There is a spectrum, and you have to keep balancing polarities or opposites, if you like. Always, is it intuition or is it fact? Is it short term or is it long term? Is it emotional or is it purely intellectual? And one can keep on saying it. And as you know, life is about contradictions that coexist. And the whole wisdom and leadership judgment is about where in that spectrum you need to be at any point in time. What is too little and what is too much of anything. What is too early and what is too late. So that balancing you have to keep on doing. So I don't think there is any, if you like, a cookie cutter answer, but it's just an awareness, and it's just about asking questions. It's about being open, and it's not easy. But unless you have the leadership team, the important people, the people who really are driving the energy, and of course they need the support of the people. But I've generally found that if the leadership in the top 2-3 levels are committed, then the rest of the troops tend to follow, provided you explain to them, provided you tell them and discuss with them. I have never had any problems. I mean, and Mahindra is not the first. Mahindra, of course, is on a huge scale and far more different. But take a company like Tata Metallics. It was a small company when I went in there as the managing director in 1996. I think time is over, Jaspreet.
No, please go ahead.
I definitely have one more question for you, but please
go ahead. Let me not tell the story there. But I have the basic point I'm making is that the troops will follow if the leadership is clear, and if the leadership can create meaning and tell them what the relevance is, the why part. They will come in whole hog with the what and the how, and they will co-create. That's been my experience. But you have to light the fire. You have to create that passion. You have to create that meaning. You have to empower and have processes, systems, metrics that sort of support this and review this and allow for a course correction. I know I'm talking about utopia.
No, Rajeev, you're not. I was a part of that utopia for a while, so I know that how much you and Anand and everyone else work to make it happen. You are now at the cusp of and are moving on from a very illustrious corporate career, and it's, if I may say so, the phase one of your work. One of the things that you're interested in, you told us, is the future of work, and in how, in fact, a part of the future of work task force for one part of the ILO. And so I know that you're interested in that and working towards a few of those tenets. So the question that I had with you, for you, Rajeev, was a little personal. Okay, that what is the future of your work now? Okay, for the next many years, and how do you continue to keep that fire lit and to drive that positive change, which is what your life mantra has become? What are the plans that we can look forward to?
Yeah. Okay. So, Jaspreet, I am very clear that my purpose is to be able to drive positive change in the life of whoever I come in touch with. Clearly, I have this grand dream that, can I drive positive change on a larger scale? And can I drive it for those who are, if you like, at the bottom of the pyramid, those who are in bad state? Now, what form will it take? I really don't know. It's work in progress. But, coaching could be one part. Now, coaching not only for corporate fat cats, maybe not for them, maybe I'm not even capable of that, but working with people across sectors. It could be NGOs, it could be the educational sector, it could even be politicians, it could be bureaucrats, I don't know. But helping to create change in the best way that I can contribute. That's one part. The second part for me is, I've always been attracted to knowledge and learning and applying that to drive positive change. I'm a failed academic. I had great ambitions of being an academic, but early on in life, I realized that I didn't have it in me to be an academic, and that's why I strayed into the corporate world. And finally, I think seva, seva, giving of myself without expecting anything in return, and doing that in a slightly formalized way. Now, I'm not Mother Teresa, but can I join up and in a systematic manner give my time purely in seva of the needy? So I think these 2-3 things is what I'm thinking of. Maybe I'll get to be on a couple of boards because I need to have some connection. I am the non-executive chairman of a couple of Mahindra companies, so maybe they'll allow me to carry on with that. So it's a mix of these things. But all of it is, I guess, moving around, driving positive change and unleashing potential and doing some seva, going beyond myself. The universe has been very kind to me, and I have felt that I have not given back enough. So can I give back more? Does that sound crazy and stupid? Maybe.
It sounds extremely exemplary, if I may say so.
I was going to say, sounds so inspiring, Rajeev. And I mean, I really hope we stay connected in this area of work, because we have so much which, would be perhaps of interest to you. And I know we can learn a lot from some of your experiences.
We can together learn a lot. I don't have much to give, much to learn.
So thank you so much, Rajeev. I see that we don't have too many questions. We have a lot of comments, though. And to be honest, all the comments are about the things you've said and how inspiring they are, and how people are valuing some of the ideas that you're sharing. But there aren't any questions per se. Any last idea that you would like to leave our viewers with?
There's only one thing that I'd like to say, that each one of us is capable of doing far more than we think. Our biggest enemy is our own mind and the limitations that we impose. All the I can'ts that we impose on ourselves. And we should give ourselves a chance. Jasprit referred to the firewalk. I mean, really what the firewalk did for me was it told me that I can take my fears, my anxieties, my doubts, and still go for it. Each time, so it's about converting the I can't into I can. At least let's give myself the chance and the energy. I may still fail. I'm sure I'll fail many times. But can I still go for it and not kill something even before it is born or even before it starts walking, which is what we do. A lot of us do. As we grow up, as children, we are connected to the power of the universe. There are no limitations in a child's mind. Nothing is impossible. But the process of growing up, and especially the education system that most of us have gone through, simply converted that freedom and that limitless and the unbound potential into a series of you can't, I can't do more than this, you don't know. And all these I can'ts came and clogged up our mind. And I think if we can unclog that mind, if we can, knowing that we have, doubts, fears, that's okay. I think a lot of us worry about having worries and fears. And I'm saying, don't worry, take it as something natural. Take your fears and your anxieties in your arms, embrace them, and then walk on the fire. And you'll make it through. Or maybe you won't, who knows? But it's worth a try.
How wonderful. Lovely. Thank you so much, Rajeev. Jasprit, anything you want to add? I think you summed it up so beautifully, Rajeev. It will be really hard for us to say anything more impactful after this. Thank you so much, Rajeev. We loved having you on our show. I think you shared a lot of really great ideas. One of the things which I'm taking back from, what you've said is this whole piece of how important the inner space of the leader is in creating the energy which will eventually drive the system. And, I love what you said about the importance of philosophy in enabling the leader to ride the polarities which he or she will keep encountering through that process. So this combination of deep connection with why they are doing what they are doing, inner space fueling the entire movement, and then having the stamina to, last it out for as long as it takes. And the reality is that for organizations today, being able to know how to transform, there's a skill, there's an art, there's a science, and it's all of this coming together. But it does start from this deep commitment to something being different. And what you've shown us with the Mahindra example actually is that sometimes you're committed to travel down a path which may not be where you would have gone had this change not happened. So, in some organizations, it could even run counter to, maybe what the organization's traditional orientation may have been. But with all that energy and movement, change does happen. And probably that's why it's so rare, because for all of these different pieces to come together, it's not common within a leader and then within a leadership team. So thank you so much. It was really, really helpful.
Thank you, Rajeev. We shall now all go walk on fire. That's what I take from this.
Thank you. Thank you. So thank you, viewers. We had such a great session with Rajeev. I think he was so inspiring that at the end of it, I can see there are almost no questions and there are a ton of comments. We will, of course, share all your comments with Rajeev to read. Don't forget to join us next week on Saturday. We have Ravi Shankar Iyer joining us for a conversation around why storytelling has suddenly become so important. How is it helpful? What are some of the risks, and what can you learn as a leader to use on how to use storytelling within your organization? So do join us. Do follow Uncube on LinkedIn and visit our website. All our past conversations just like this are hosted there. This conversation today will go up on our website by Monday, so you can watch a replay there. Jasprit, anything you would like to say?
No, I'm good. I think it was just an amazing session today. And I would again like to reiterate, do follow us on LinkedIn, go to uncube.com, and we are on Twitter too. So all of those, so that we can keep on hearing about all the, weekly we are putting some great stuff out, and would love to share that with all of you.
Yeah. Thank you then. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.